Hello, good evening and welcome to the Super License F1 Live stream. I'm Rod. No Zach today, just me. And if you have ever seen this before, when Zach's not been on, I do things like this.
Wow, I guess this is a big moment. I should care about it.
Do things like this.
Both went soft, hard.
Do things like this.
Fast charting.
And we do things like this.
I'm tripping major nutsack right now.
It's a good time is what I'm trying to say. So we're going to cover a couple of stories. We've got obviously the Singapore Grand Prix. We're going to talk about it. The McLaren situation. If you're an Oscar Piastri fan, stick around. If you're a McLaren or Lando Norris fan, watch whatever the next video is, because I don't want to upset anybody. But we're going to rip into some people. I'm also going to talk about Lewis Hamilton and his defenders online, the modern state of modern F1 journalism, and the existential threat that is Stefano Domenicali to F1's historic races. You know, everything that makes Formula One good, well, he hates it. He wants to get rid of it. Smart guy. Good to have a guy like that running the sport. You absolutely love to see it. Turn that off. Get rid of that. All right. So I need something to react to. I need something to, I guess just bounce off. I could just sit here and rattle off everything that I think about the Singapore Grand Prix and the McLaren situation and how they've been treating our OSC. The main message is hands off our OSC. That's what we're trying to say. I mean, I feel like it's not original anymore to make a video about this because so many people have made a video about this or written about it or posted about it. I'm actually really surprised that the sway of general opinion is so majority supporting of Oscar. And if you disagree, let me know. But everything that I see is kind of wall-to-wall supporting of Oscar. We can dispel the myth right at the top. That McLaren posted a team photo where they were up on the podium and everyone was cheering, "We're Constructors Champions." And Oscar wasn't there and everyone was like, how dare you celebrate? How dare you celebrate when your championship leader's not there? The guy that got you more than half of your points isn't there. How dare you celebrate? And someone, pointed out, look, it was kind of a go right now and just do this kind of thing. We all just got told to go and do it. So we just did it. It wasn't really a planned thing. It was just bad luck. Oscar was around later. He celebrated later. But man, Singapore was really one of those cluster things for McLaren. I rag on the race when they post silly videos and have dumb opinions, but let's check out this video they made, because I think this one hits the nail on the head. This is the first video that I saw about the situation. But I think it does, the best job of accurately summing up the facts, but also reflecting how I feel too. Let's get into it.
McLaren's title-fighting teammates Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have finally collided properly on track, and the team now finds itself in a...
Now, they haven't finally collided properly on track. I mean, they collided in Canada. What he means is collided in terms of battle, and there was a result.
right mess over interfering with their title battle. Norris's wheel-banging pass on Piastri on the opening lap of the Singapore Grand Prix was not fully investigated by the stewards, and McLaren opted to take no action either, despite Piastri's clear anger at what Norris did.
So a lot has been made of this part. The stewards thought it was fine, so therefore hands off. You need to understand that where this is coming from is McLaren have intervened plenty of times, and the standard is not whether the stewards got involved or not. The standard is whether they want to get involved or not. So everyone's saying, I'm on Team Lando because the stewards cleared Lando of any wrongdoing. That is not how this works.
The immediate justification was that Norris hit Piastri because he had to avoid Max Verstappen, but we'll get to that slightly limp rationale, why Norris wasn't punished by his own team, and what the consequences of that are later in this video. We've been waiting for this kind of clash for a long time. Apart from Norris clumsily driving into the back of Piastri in Canada and wrecking his own race, the two have had several near misses, and there have been simmering tensions around strategy, team...
Yeah, so we have to make something of that, because first of all, the two drivers have made contact twice. Both Lando Norris instigated and his fault. And a lot was made. I mean, they just showed a shot there from Austria this year where after Canada, when, it looked like Oscar was going to get overtaken. It looked like he was going to lose out to Lando. Lando hit him. Friggin' hit him. On that occasion, Oscar came out on top and Lando lost out big. But then again, Lando was the one that made the mistake. So he has to wear that. The race after that was Austria. And Lando Norris qualified, and then Oscar had his qualifying disrupted by a yellow flag, and he couldn't qualify. So he had to qualify. His lesser time was what counted. So we don't know what he would have been able to do or not. He sure thought he was going to do better. It certainly wasn't fair. There's that. And then Oscar was following Lando, and he felt that he had a bit of extra pace. He felt that he had a chance. He had a few lunges at Lando and had to lock up a couple of times. And the team told him, hey, whoa. Hey, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't go trying to overtake like that. That's wild. Don't do that. That's crazy. Talking to him like he was a child. Didn't say that when Lando hit the other guy. Didn't say it this race when Lando slammed into the side and banged wheels with Oscar. Didn't say anything. I mean, Zach Brown afterwards was saying he was boasting about how clean his drivers are and how they never cause problems with the way they drive. Like, mate, give me a break.
Orders and the dreaded papaya rules. This proper...
Stop. We have to define the papaya rules. Everybody gets this wrong and it drives me insane. Everyone's like, we want to end to papaya rules. I just want these guys to be able to race. Guys, that's what papaya rules is. Papaya rules means they can race. The opposite of papaya rules is team rules. Team orders. Please, everybody get it straight. It's really important. We're sick of papaya rules. We don't want papaya rules. Just let them race. Papaya rules means they can race.
Position-changing clash, which helped Norris cut Piastri's lead to 22 points, and that McLaren actively chose to let go, is a significant moment. It heaps fresh scrutiny on its policy with its drivers, and clearly had a much bigger impact on Piastri than any other flashpoint has so far. That wider context is critical, as the wheel banging between Norris and Piastri is a classic example of what can happen on the first lap. Harsh on Piastri, but not particularly surprising to see the stewards let it go, as it happened.
So, yeah, so a couple of things to touch on there. Think of the times when Piastri has been annoyed. Think of the times. So, he gets hit in Canada, bit annoyed. Austria gets told off, hey, stop trying to overtake. What are you doing? That's annoying. Silverstone. Piastri has a huge lead. They pull out a safety car. He loses his huge lead. Copsa, I'm still saying, pretty dodgy penalty. And Lando ends up ahead. And then Piastri gets on the radio and says, I don't think this is fair. And if you don't think it's fair too, let's swap the cars and then you can let us race. Now, I'm the first one to say that was never going to happen. And as dodgy as I think that penalty was, I'm not saying that they should have swapped cars. But Piastri clearly then wasn't happy and they clearly talked about stuff. But the other reason that you have to think about, like, well, what has been going on behind the scenes? Because they don't tell us. But what's been going on behind the scenes after Norris hits Piastri in Canada? After Austria, when Oscar tries to challenge for an overtake and gets told not to. After Hungary last year. After Monza last year. These guys know what they're doing. When Oscar comes on the radio and says, I don't think this is fair, it's telling. Because it means that the team have agreed that they're going to try and keep it fair. Think of the message that they told Oscar. Control the controllables, right? This is what the team's trying to do. Control the controllables. Pretty ironic. Especially when you think of the Monza pit stop that they screwed up between Lando and Oscar, where Lando was ahead. Oscar pitted first. They pitted Lando and his pit stop was slow. And then they said, that's not fair, so you guys have got to switch your back around. And Oscar was like, look, we talked about this. Guys, we talked about this. We've talked about this. And we said, slow pit stop, we don't swap. That's part of racing. We're not doing that. So he said, we're going to have to talk about this later. I don't know what's going on. But we said we weren't going to do that. And now you're doing it. So he did it. But I mean, like, it's clear the team owes him one, right? It's clear the team owes him one. Let's watch a bit more. I've got so much more to say, but let's watch a bit more.
In the first sequence of corners and was between teammates. What makes it more controversial and complicated is McLaren's laudable but flawed ongoing attempt to guarantee fairness between the two. Piastri took serious issue with what Norris called a small correction, saying he barged him out of the way and outright called it not fair when told by McLaren they wouldn't be doing anything about it.
Yeah. So after the race, when Sky were dissecting it and giving it their completely unbiased, can you see that I'm winking? Sky with their completely un-British bias, loud wink, loud clicking noise into the microphone. Not Lando Norris biased at all. Said, oh, man. And Lando said, oh, it was so wet and slippery. And then they also said, oh, but Max had a snap of oversteer. Oh, and also this and that. Also, they were trying to say it was Oscar's fault. They were like, oh, you can see Oscar nudging over here to make the angle harder for Lando. And then Lando gets his car straight. And this is Anthony Davidson speak. Like, he's trying to deploy 100% potential of his braking, 100% of his braking potential in a straight line. I was like, dude, he drove into the back of the car ahead of him and he drove into the side of Oscar. And that's what happened. He drove into the back of Max Verstappen. They were trying to say, like, oh, he was avoiding Max Verstappen. Like, well, that's his problem. That's his fault. And then post-race, when they said to Lando, would you do anything different? He was like, oh, Oscar left me a big gap, so I went through it. Well, yeah, he's your teammate, you idiot. Of course he left you a gap. And then Lando said, I've got a lot more to lose than Oscar. I would not deliberately drive into the side of my teammate. And it's like, right. So you're admitting that you weren't in control of your car. That makes it so much better. We'll get to that later when we talk about the Hamilton story as well. But man, when you're out of control of your car and you admit it, and then you hit the other driver and then you end up getting in front of him, it really doesn't make the case for you keeping that position. And again, it's not about what Lando did wrong. Again, the stewards cleared it. It's a first lap incident. It's an incident between teammates. They really rarely penalise those. It's about this situation and this, frankly, bullshit that McLaren have been going on with this year. We have them to thank for these two drivers racing each other, which is great. But it's also sucking the fucking life out of this championship. Sport is about the drama, the highs and lows, the luck. How many times have you heard people say, he generates his own luck. Champions make their own luck. It's not champions make their own luck when the team helps them. And even Lando was like, when you see a gap and you don't go for it, if you're not going to go for it, you shouldn't be in Formula One anymore. The saying isn't, if you see a gap and you don't go for it, you should no longer be driving in Formula One, unless the team decides to help you, and then in which case it's fine anyway.
The problem with McLaren's drive for fairness is that you can talk about hypotheticals all you like, but there's so many scenarios that can arise that will be open to interpretation. Piastri was told to control the controllables by...
This drives me insane too. Like I said before, Piastri was told, control the controllables. And it's like, mate, that's what he's telling you to do. There's no question that he lost that position because of the contact. And if there was no contact, like for Lando to avoid that contact, he would have had to have gotten out of that move, which would have at least given Oscar a chance to defend, if not just firmly hold that position. You can't argue any otherwise. So he was asking the team, please control the controllables. You're in control of what you tell the drivers. You did it at Monza. We did it at Monza. Monza, which was in Monza, Lando wasn't at fault and Oscar wasn't at fault, but the team took action. Here, this is worse because Oscar wasn't at fault, but Lando was. So take action.
Race engineer Tom Stallard when he was complaining in race. But perhaps McLaren is guilty of trying to control the uncontrollables with the extent of how it tries to manage fairness between the drivers and has effectively overpromised on what it is possible to manage. That always had the potential to create flashpoints during the title running, and it has already, which means McLaren has played a key part in the obvious tension that clouds what should be a day of celebration given it won the Constructors' Championship.
That was everybody's take, was like, bittersweet. Win the Constructors for the second year in a row. It's their second time that they've won the Constructors, like, They've only won 10. You think of McLaren as one of the most successful teams in Formula One history. They've only won 10 constructors. Like Ferrari's won 16 or something. But that doesn't even count. They've won 2 with these 2 guys. And they've only won 10 total. Like, this is incredible success these guys are having. Maybe you guys don't need to see an ad for Squarespace. Let's get rid of that. I don't know, man. I just don't know. Zach Brown, so cringe. Kissing the camera and everything. Like I say, saying that, our drivers drive really clean. The very race. The very race where there's the biggest controversy that we've had. I actually was thinking about this. The outpouring online of frustration and annoyance at this event is huge. And this is like the 3rd or 4th flashpoint that we've had between these 2. It might be the biggest controversy we've had since Abu Dhabi 2021, if you think about it. I can't think of anything that's annoyed as many people and has been so one-sided since then. So whose side are you on? And what do you want done in future? It drives me crazy when I see things online and people saying like, earlier this year and last year, Lando Norris was getting criticized because he wasn't getting his elbows out enough. He was like half-hearted moves that weren't coming off because he wasn't fully committing. And now he fully commits and pushes through. And what do? You criticize him for doing a great overtake. I was like, look, I've been watching Formula One a long time. I'm not saying that was a penalty-worthy move, but it also wasn't a fair move. You can't say that was a fair move. And when you drive and make contact with 2 other cars, that is your fault, bro. And you need to own that. And I just think, again, Oscar's put in a position of going to the team hat in hand and saying, please, sir, some of this fairness that you keep giving to Lando and taking from me, please, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more for old Oscar, please. I had hoped after the DNF that Lando had in Zandvoort, I had hoped that Oscar would go on and win the championship, but not just win it, but win it having pulled out a bigger points lead. So that there could be no doubt. So that the classic British doubters and haters would not say, oh yeah, but Lando had a DNF and he finished within 10 points, so if you factor that in, he really would have won. Crap like that. Because that stuff drives me crazy. But it's also like, that's what sport is about, man. That's what sport's about, man. Sometimes you have bad luck. That's called sport. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it dynamic. That's why it leaves you to stew on the good and bad luck that you have. Not because there's some kind of force determining things to go that way or not, but just because it adds tension, it adds drama. And McLaren, again, are sucking all of the tension and drama out of this championship. They're just literally sucking the life out of it. Want proof? Look at how excited everybody got when Max Verstappen was emerging as a new threat. Imagine being excited about the prospect of another Max Verstappen championship right now. Imagine how shit the situation has to be. That people are like, another Max Verstappen championship? Oh, yes, please. We're keen for that. Yes, please. That means you're in a bad situation. A real bad situation. So, of course, I'm on Team Oscar. Of course, I'm on Team Oscar. What are you talking about? I still feel that this year there will be a race, just some race, that Oscar just blitzes it and wins. There's still 6 races to go. There's plenty of points up for grabs. It's still advantage Oscar, sure. This is the kind of race that he needed to have in Baku, where neither of them win. Lando gets some points and Oscar's still right there, but that didn't happen. But this is what Oscar needed to do that race and not be an idiot and crash like an idiot. But I still think there will be some race there. Oscar comes out, wins it, and ends up winning the championship. I think that will still happen. We'll see. The threat of Max Verstappen winning races or scoring lots of points should worry Lando Norris. Because if Max is not a threat, Piastri looks the hard man to beat. And if Max Verstappen starts to charge and keeps gaining points on Lando Norris, now that the Constructors is wrapped up at McLaren, as long as Piastri's ahead, if Verstappen closes in on Lando Norris and gets close, or even passes him, it's got to be game over for Lando Norris, and you've got to get behind Oscar Piastri for the championship, because I'm sure they did this last year. They backed Lando Norris last year because he was the one who was charging and a potential threat for Max Verstappen. I say potential because I never really believed it. I don't think anyone ever really believed it, other than bloody Will Buxton or whoever. Made a video about that as well, highlighting Will Buxton calling out for the team to get behind one of the drivers because they were the better chance to win the championship. Well, let's see what happened if Max Verstappen charges, gets close to or passes Lando Norris. Let's see if he changes his tune then. I hope he does. Whew. I'm annoyed. How good was Oscar Piastri turning his radio off though when Zach Brown was congratulating him? Oh man, what a great championship we did! Click. Shut up. You just love to see it. And like I said, there was a lot of positive sentiment for Oscar Piastri, as there should be. Positive sentiment online isn't always everything, and you can't go by that alone. Quick comment in the chat here before I move on. Lando broke the agreement for 3 points. Oscar now has that chance in pocket. What happens? He does respond like Max responded to Lewis. See, I don't know that Lando purposefully, consciously broke the agreement, but I mean, in effect, he broke the cardinal rule. Don't crash into your teammate. He broke that. What's annoying for me is that he won't admit it. What's annoying for me is the team won't admit it. I woke up this morning and in classic social media fashion, I was scrolling and I saw this post that said McLaren have now admitted that they will review Singapore, look at every angle, see what they could have done better. And then it disappeared off the scroll, and then for hours I couldn't find it again. There was nothing on the McLaren site. There was nothing on any Formula One site. I was like, what happened while I was asleep? What was announced? I think I think they would have investigated anyway. But clearly Oscar's not happy. Clearly the outpouring of online sentiment is just ridiculous. I think Formula One needs to probably talk to McLaren and say, hey, you're ruining our brand. Please sort this out. Be fair, sure. But if you're going to say you're going to be fair, be fair. Do it. So the agreement, is the agreement on? Everyone's saying now, like, the agreement's off. Everyone's saying now the gloves are off. What I would like to see is this garbage from the team being called off. Sure. I want to see the guys race. I always have wanted to see the guys race. Again, if you're confused, the option that we want is papaya rules. We want permanent papaya rules now going forward. And we're 75 years into this sport. The teams have worked out the rules. If you qualify better and you're ahead in the race, you get the preferential pit strategy. If the other guy wants to go on a contra strategy, they have to ask you, do you want to sacrifice that? Do you want to give up to that? But we've worked this out. I hate to say it, but what we should have going forward is predictable rules of engagement so that we know what's going on and everyone else knows what's going on. Please? Okay. Thanks. I was going to get into this. Like I was trying to say, just because fans online say one thing doesn't mean that that's necessarily the truth. But also, like I said before, let's have a look at the state of Formula One journalism. What passes for journalism? Now, granted, this is not exactly motorsport.com or skyf1.com or even Fox Sports. But, you know, not to besmirch the great people at f1oversteer.com. But this story here, F1 fans are all saying the same thing after Lewis Hamilton handed crazy Singapore Grand Prix penalty. So you might remember, during the race, Hamilton's brakes forgot how to brake. They had an existential crisis. And they went on, they were enjoying some of the sights that Singapore had to offer. They went on holiday, and Hamilton couldn't brake his car, couldn't slow down, couldn't stop. He had no brakes, bro. As a result, he kept going off track because he couldn't manage his speed. And then he got a whole bunch of penalties for going off track. And the poor fan boys and girls and fan NBs, the poor brain-broken people following Lewis Hamilton who just defend him at all costs, their argument seems to be, you can't give Lewis Hamilton a penalty for going off track when he's got no brakes. That's not fair. Lewis Hamilton was handed a 5-second penalty for going off the track after the Singapore Grand Prix. The stewards decided that he had no justifiable reason to leave the track multiple times, despite suffering a late brake failure. Hamilton, who lost nearly 60 seconds in the span of the last few laps, was hanging on for dear life, hodl, in the closing stages. His Ferrari held off Fernando Alonso by just 0.4, but the stewards believe the Briton fell foul of the rules on his way to doing so. They don't believe that. It's fact. It turned to a disappointing Singapore Grand Prix. Even worse for a man who was still longing for his first podium in red. Well, he was nowhere near his first podium, so... Did AI write this? Like, AI must have contributed to this article. Alonso was furious with Hamilton and couldn't understand how he managed to stay ahead of him, despite his late struggles. You probably remember... Have I got it handy? I don't even know if I do. Maybe I've got it on my phone. The amazing radio. I mean, in a race full of amazing radios from Fernando Alonso, this was him following Lewis Hamilton. Oh, fucking hell, man. I can't believe it. I cannot fucking believe it. I cannot fucking believe it. I mean, I cannot fucking believe it. I cannot fucking believe it. Is it safe to drive with no brakes? What a guy. Do you think he could believe it? Alonso was furious with Hamilton and couldn't understand how he managed to stay ahead of him despite his late struggles. Jensen Button thinks Hamilton could leave F1 if things don't go his way in 2026. Yeah, well, whatever. Fans, this is where this article goes off the rails. F1 fans say Lewis Hamilton's penalty was crazy after the Singapore Grand Prix. Oh, really? F1 fans said that? Oh, geez. Well, we should look into that. Hamilton has made a child's mistake at Ferrari and has a lot of work to do to turn his fortunes around heading into the 2026 F1 regulations. You don't head into regulations. You head into a season with new... Anyway, to date, he's probably going through the most difficult period of his Formula One career so far. Well, thanks. I mean, I'm glad that you padded that out so you could fit a few more fucking ads on your article here, bro. He's nailed on for 6th in the Drivers' Championship with 6 races in the campaign to go. He can still help his teammate finish second in the Constructors too. Losing 2 more points with his post-race Singapore penalty does him no favours though. Speaking on X, formerly known as Twitter, one fan called the result of the steward's investigation crazy. Couldn't see how he could be penalised after suffering a brake failure. Managing brake issues and without justifiable reason in the same sentence is crazy work, the individual commented. Oh, it was an individual that commented that? Sick. We should definitely look into this then. How is not having brakes not a justifiable reason? Added another person. Another person. Well, someone else agreed with the sentiment. How's having no brakes not a good enough reason? The people are demanding answers. This is an article. This isn't like someone took the time, all of 3 minutes, to run this through AI and generate an article out of this. One fan spotted a flaw in his argument and protested that a retirement was the most viable option, adding that if he had no brakes, then he should have retired the car. How is that safe? If he had no brakes, he should have retired the car. I mean, great point. These cars go at 300 kilometers per hour Around this, the Singapore is basically like a big concrete box that you drive around 300 kilometers an hour. If the guy's got no brakes, retire the friggin' car. It's ridiculous. But the last few we're still back on this friggin' thread. This Twitter thread is somehow means for an article here. The last few responses were fairly unanimous. Well, if the thread was unanimous, if the chat agrees, I mean, we don't even need a poll. If the chat agrees, then there has to be action. They agreed that there was little the 7-time champion could have done. Not having brakes is a pretty justifiable reason, lol. Again, he could have retired. If he wants to finish the race, if he's capable of doing that, he can. But if you can't keep it on the track, you get penalised. It's just as simple as that. Surely brake failure is a justifiable reason, added one last fan. Yeah, we've already said that about 5 times. This last bit, why Lewis Hamilton will be relieved to see which F1 race is next on the calendar. Get to that. In the short term, Hamilton will be relieved to see that the United States Grand Prix is next on the calendar, which is a track that he always goes well at. 9 times between 2014 and 2022 yielded no results worse than third, including 4 consecutive wins at one stage. Which Twitter user posted that? And did the chat agree? I need to know what the thread had to say. Unfortunately, he hasn't been classified in each of the last 2 events. I mean, he was classified in Singapore, but whatever. But there's no reason why a new situation can't bring back his old form. Well, I can think of a few reasons, man. One of them is the badge on his car and the color of his race suit. I mean, Jensen Button's out there saying, yeah, maybe it's time for him to go. maybe it's done. Maybe it's just time to admit that none of this really worked out. Maybe he's got a point. But this was the worry, that they built this dream at Ferrari, Leclerc and Hamilton, and let's inject $1 bajillion, get those HP dollars going. But where do we end up? Not even podium worthy. Struggling to stay in the top 10. Struggling to keep the car, literally struggling to keep the car on the track. Great stuff. Well done to all involved. Sound off in the thread. Give it a like and a cheeky fave, I guess. Like their only problem was the drivers, says my chat. Yeah, well, exactly. And it's good to see Ironfoot. Thanks for joining me again and for chiming off. The problem is the car. We know. I know. I'm not for the life of me saying Lewis Hamilton is the problem. Anyway. What have we here? Oh, God. Every time I see this guy's face, it just fills me with dread. You just know bad news is coming. You see this guy, you just know what's about to happen is not good. But I just want to cover some of this because, I mean, talk about killing the sport. I mean, we can talk about McLaren sucking the life out of the sport. But this guy, man, I just don't know. And you can think about all the blowback, and I mentioned this I posted this on Threads as well, but there's all this blowback against the Riyadh Comedy Festival about, entertainment washing, comedy washing, and they've openly said that they're trying to sport wash their reputation and say, well, how bad could Saudi Arabia be if we have comedy festivals there? How bad could they be if Formula One goes there? This is the guy that wants more of that and less historic circuits. He's like, yeah, historic circuits, yeah, they're kind of boring. This is the same guy who said young people don't watch lengthy races. Like, I mean, yep. If someone said to you, someone who's involved with Formula One was criticizing young people for not having attention spans, this is the person you imagine. If you type that into ChatGPT, generate me an image of someone who runs the sport and also loves to criticize young people, it would generate this. From the great people at Speed Cafe, this one's from Ben Waterworth. F1 Boss questions future of historic circuits. Formula One CEO Stefano has once again highlighted the tension between historic and contemporary tracks, suggesting history may not be enough to secure a circuit's place on the calendar. Well, no shit. That's why Spa's TikToking, and we're not going to have a race there every single year. Speaking on Italy's Passa del BSMT podcast, Domenicali, how do we get people of this level on our podcast? Domenicali explained that while circuits with heritage carry a plus value, younger fans today place less importance on history. Yep, with their bloody TikToks and their skateboards and their rap music. This is why we can't have nice things. Obviously, if a Grand Prix has historic value, it's a plus, but it's not enough, he said. For many young fans today, racing in Monte Carlo compared to a new circuit in Las Vegas makes no difference. This fucking guy. So history must be supported by a structure that looks to the future, that allows investment in infrastructure to improve. Since tickets are not exactly cheap, well, maybe you should make them cheap, you knob. To provide services to fans at all levels and to allow countries to be financially present in a calendar that I think won't grow beyond the number of races we have today. Yeah, it is ridiculous to think there could be more than 24 races in a calendar. Domenicali remarks come amid ongoing debate over the calendar. Excuse me, this fucking guy's put me to sleep. Which will remain at 24 races next year, and the growing pressure on circuits to modernise their facilities. Part of the problem is there's not enough money to go around. And people who have already gone to Spa or Monza or Silverstone 10, 12, 20 times, they're suddenly having to think, all right, well, maybe I don't want to go this year. If I have to choose between that and Barcelona, if I have to choose between that and Azerbaijan, if I have to choose between that and whatever. Plus, the squeeze is just on, and not as many people can keep going. So that makes it harder for the events to make money, and that makes it harder for the events to keep running, especially when they have to commit to like 5-10 year contracts, right? And then we end up in a situation where we just keep losing historic events, because then Formula One has to say, well, you can have a discount. We can cut you a deal because we don't want to lose Monte Carlo, we don't want to lose Spa, we don't want to lose whatever. And this is like, you know, this is the sort of, it runs against that business idiom of like, if you're not growing, you're shrinking. Like, I hate it. Because then when you go out looking for who's got the money and wants to run an event, oh, look at that, Saudi Arabia. Like, great. Well done, mate. You really nailed it. Wonder why young people aren't interested. Of all the people who are not going to fucking engage with the sport because you go to Saudi Arabia, it's young people, you fucking idiot. Domenicali's remarks come amid ongoing debate over the calendar, which will remain at 24 races next year, and the growing pressure on circuits to modernise their facilities. The CEO also reflected on the sport's shift towards entertainment, citing the popularity of Netflix's Drive to Survive. Welcome to 7 years ago, mate. And other media as a factor in attracting new audiences. Like the F1 movie? Have you heard of it? You're in it. This is your example? Drive to Survive? The fucking F1 movie was the biggest movie from this year, you idiot. F1 is no longer just in a sporting... Oh, not off the topic. The F1 movie was shit. And it was shit because they used it as an ad. Like, it could have been a good movie, but they were so... Their core goal seems to have been, make this a successful movie so people will get interested in Formula One. When we say successful, we don't mean good. We mean entertaining. Like, don't exclude anybody. Don't exclude anybody. And if that means the movie is trite and boring and cliche, then do it. Don't know what I was up to. Anyway, the conversation around format change has also returned. Oh, fuck yeah, the format change. They want to change qualifying again. And Martin Brundle's out there saying, yeah, Singapore's a bit long, isn't it? Maybe it should be like Monte Carlo and make it a bit shorter. And that's partly in response to what this idiot's out there saying, like, yeah, young people won't watch long races. Like, bro, young people watch 10-hour live streams of things. Like, you've got no idea what you're talking about. Get this sport in the hands of Apple. We'll read that. I'll pull up a story about that next and we'll read it, because I need to get across some of the details of that. The conversation around format change has also returned to the fore, with Williams team principal James Vowell advocating for a 2-day Grand Prix weekend to allow for more flexibility in scheduling and potentially expand the number of venues. Awesome. Not a fan of James Vowell's, never really have been, and honestly, the more I hear from him, the less I like him. Speaking during the Singapore Grand Prix, Vowell suggested reducing the 3 practice sessions to streamline weekends. I'd just reduce the amount of free practice and make it a spectacle, but by doing that and giving back 24 days to the teams, actually you could do a few more race weekends if you wanted. No. No, you can't. Doesn't work like that. I'm heated today. Let me pull up a story about Apple and F1, see if we can get across some of that detail. It's all rumor. I think that's really the problem, is that it's all rumor. Oh, God. Well, all right. From 9 to 5 Mac, this will do. 9 to 5 Mac are good at Apple news. I don't know how good they are at Formula One news. But they are Benjamin Mayer. Oh, there you go. Fellow podcaster. Maybe he'll come on the show one time and talk about Apple and Formula One if a deal ever comes across. I'm sure he would. He's in Britain. Maybe Zach can convince him to wake up early one morning and come chat to us. The long gestating streaming rights deal between Apple and Formula One is apparently reaching the finish line. In his newsletter, Puck's John Oran reports that the two sides have nearly finalised negotiations with an eye to announce the partnership at the upcoming US Grand Prix on the 17th and 19th of October, held in Austin. Well, that's pretty soon, so we better hope that they've done it. We don't seem to be sharing the right article on here. What's going on? You're probably wanting to see the actual article that I'm looking at. Hey, let's do that. There we go. Nice to have you with us. Okay. Apparently, the protracted discussions relate to a dispute over the existence of the independent F1.TV streaming service in the United States. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Apple, who would be paying upwards of $150 million a year for the rights, wants streaming exclusivity and therefore F1 TV to be shuttered in the region. Just do it. Just do it. Everyone says F1 TV is really good. And every time I complain about Sky, everyone's like, just go to F1 TV. Get it in through Apple. I don't want to have to listen to Sky anymore. I'd be happy to listen to ESPN or F1 TV or whoever, but I just don't. I don't want to have Sky be my main and only option. And I can't imagine that Apple will do the wrong thing. But anyway, let's see. However, the service is profitable for F1 and widely beloved by hardcore fans, with seemingly low rates of cannibalization compared to the audience that up till now watched on ESPN. I've covered here on this live stream as well, in particular on the live stream, the success of Formula One in the US and the success of the TV rights and the success of the impact of Drive to Survive and the shitty F1 movie. That viewing rates for races keep going up, 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 up. And all through the Verstappen years, when people were like, man, this Verstappen dominance is going to turn fans away, and we're trying to grow this sport in the F1 and in America, and this Verstappen guy, he's got to be stopped because he's killing. Like, the audience is just bored. They're just going to turn off. And yet the viewing figures just went up and up and up, and it kept breaking record after record. And I'm sure that's why Apple's interested. Anyway, apparently the discussion on this point has gone back and forward between the parties a few times, which explains why it has taken so long to get a deal signed on the dotted line. It's also currently unclear what the outcome of the negotiations were as far as F1 TV's future in the United States is concerned. In some international markets, F1 TV is similarly unavailable due to deals with local rights holders. As a reminder, ESPN is giving up its US broadcast rights for Formula One at the end of the 2025 season. Apple would take over, presumably offering F1 as an add-on through the Apple TV app from next year. I've heard Benjamin Mayo in his podcast talking about this a lot, and this is the part that I don't like, is that Formula One would be an add-on to some other service. That's going to kill it. That's no good. It's got to just be pay X amount of dollars, get F1. It's got to be that simple. There's also a lot of things that they could do. I think Formula One is a really unique product, and I think Apple's like positioned really well to do something with it beyond just plain broadcasting. What do I mean by that? So one example is these apps where people go, hey, do you have F1 TV where you can stream like 10 screens worth of information and see a track and stuff like that? Well, put it in your like Vision Pro, like the AR goggles, the VR goggles, right? They're VR goggles, even if Apple wants you to think that they're AR goggles. But we'll just like, you could watch the race, you can have a live timing screen over there, you can have like onboards over there, and in front of you on the ground or on your coffee table or whatever, you could have a map of the circuit with all the cars moving around. Like, it's freaking cool. It really skirts the lines of the broadcast rights. It's the meeting of a live event that's incredibly engaging, could be made a lot better by extra layers of information, which Apple and their technology are uniquely positioned to deliver. So I hope that if Apple ends up doing this, number one, I hope they offer it as a standalone sort of product that you can just buy. Number two, I hope that there's some kind of add-on or upsell or whatever, if there is going to be one, that it's that kind of thing. Do you have access to Formula One TV through Apple and Vision Pro, or a spare iPad, second screen? Because we're gonna make that so much better for you. Back to the article. Assuming it all goes to plan, we should have an official announcement later this month. Well, in a couple of weeks. I don't know. I don't think we're going to hear in a couple of weeks. But anyway, and yes, it was at the Austin Grand Prix around this time 3 years ago that Tim Cook infamously waved the checkered flag with his own trademark brand of enthusiasm. Well, now we're going to have to go and watch that. Talk amongst yourselves while I pull that up so that we can relive the glory of that. But yeah. I don't know. Again, are you excited? Do you want to see things go to Apple? Or are you not a fan? I mean, I'm not saying that Apple's perfect. But I'll tell you who's not perfect. Fox. Do I need to say that right into the microphone? Apple's not perfect, but you know who else is even worse? Fox. Tim Cook waving flag. I think this can be what we go out on. How about we all... I just read the name of the article and it's so great. The name of the video. Let's go out on this. This is going to be the end of the podcast stream as well for today. Please enjoy with me. F1 USA Grand Prix 2022. Tim Cook waving checkered flag like a dead fish.
Giving us explosive action. Norris 6, Alonso 7, Sebastian Vettel comes into finishing ahead of Kevin Magnussen and Yuki Tsunoda. And that's the top 10 points.
Joyless. Just a joyless experience. You hate to see it. Thanks for hanging out with me on the live stream. Consider giving me a little subscription there. It doesn't hurt you. What is it? Was it going to kill you to subscribe? Come on. All it does is mean that when we put out a new video, you get, a little bit of an option to watch it if you want. And if you don't, that's fine too. There's just a lot of people out there making Formula One content that I think is pretty middle of the road. Really not very interesting. And they get hundreds of thousands of views. Now, I'm not saying that we should ever get hundreds of thousands of views, but a few more would be nice. I think we're probably going to try and do a podcast, but maybe after somewhere in this run of yucky o'clock races, because we got the only good one in my time zone is Las Vegas. As much as Stefano Domenicali says the only reason young people are interested in Las Vegas is because of the glitz and glamour, and it has equal appeal as Monaco. Like, man, if all the races aren't equally appealing, that's on you. But yeah, I mean, people are interested at the races that are on in their time zone. That really helps. And I have to say, in the Australian time zone, the Formula One races just keep getting worse and worse. The very worst amongst them, the American ones, COTA, Brazil, Miami. Guess which races are all coming up? You absolutely hate to see it. But we're going to do a podcast before the end of the season. There's 6 races to go, but they will fly. I'm telling you, they will fly. They are really jammed in. It's already mid-October, guys. There's 6 races to go, but they will absolutely cram them right in. They'll come and go before you know it. So you better stay on the ball. But yeah, we'll try and do a podcast probably after the next race or two. Got to check in with Zach, what he's doing. I wanted to live stream the Singapore Grand Prix, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to be away." Thanks, mate. Podcast, live stream, probably another podcast towards the end of the season. If things get wrapped up one way or the other, we'll probably do an emergency podcast. Last race of the year, if it comes down to it, live streaming that race as well. Whether Zach is around or not, I'll be here. So stay subscribed. Thank you, Ironfoot. Until next time, see you. See you too. Take care. Thanks for watching. Catch you all later. Bye-bye.